It's hard to imagine today, but in the 1970s, New York City was broken, poorly run, and seemingly one step away from anarchy. New Yorkers remember this decade as one of the bleakest, most crime ridden, and most uncertain times the city has ever faced in recent memory. It was a time of seismic economic and cultural shifts occurring simultaneously, and a lot of people just kind of gave up on the city. Now, take that scene and vision in your head of this broken city and dial it up to 11. Throw in machismo, dystopia, glam rock, clunky dialogue, and pure counterculture, and you have the Warriors. And this grim but almost mythical take on a gang infested future, well, it struck a chord with audiences and went on to have a lasting impact on film and pop culture. There was just something that resonated with the fable like journey of the incredibly charismatic main cast of characters, even if they were literally just one in thousands of others. But that begs the question, why was there never any attempt at making a follow up or expanding the franchise? To understand, let's explore whatever happened to the Warriors. Hi, everyone. My name is Otto, and welcome to Exits Examined. We'll be exploring the lives of people, products, and more after their prime time has seemingly come to an end. If that sounds good to you, there's a subscribe button below. Although the movie is widely recognized as what's iconic, The Warriors was actually first conceived as a novel written by Saul Urich in 1965. Needless to say that this was a period of social and political upheaval in the United States. Issues like racism, urban decay, and gang violence were prevalent, and all of which found their way into the narrative of the Warriors. Born and raised in New York, Urich witnessed firsthand the incredible struggles of families in the city while working for the welfare department. He also had a front row seat to the rise of gang culture in the city. This experience provided him with the inspiration and authenticity needed to create the characters and the world of the Warriors. Apparently, he wrote it as a direct rebuttal to the romanticized view of street gangs presented in 1961's West Side Story. However, The Warriors was more than just a story about gangs. One of the most unique aspects is the almost fantastical aesthetic it has, and this is no accident, as Urich drew heavily from the ancient Greek Xenophon for inspiration. This historical account of Greek soldiers fighting their way home through hostile territory served as a major inspiration for the plot of The Warriors. Interestingly enough, Urich has stated a few times he doesn't even think it's his best book. Quote, I wrote it as kind of a joke. It took me 3 weeks to write. The film rights were purchased in 1969, but due to all the controversial topics and themes, nothing came out of it for about 10 years. It was then that Walter Hill took on the role of director and screenwriter, but even he was initially hesitant due to its intense nature, saying, I would love to do this, but nobody will let us do it. It was just going to be too extreme and weird. Interestingly enough, Hill's original idea was to divide the film into chapters, with each opening having a splash comic book style panel, but this wasn't able to be realized until the director's cut. Now, this was not going to be a huge budget movie by any standard, so to keep costs down, the casting was predominantly done in New York City. Hill wanted to use people that no one really knew about because it appealed to him both, quote, aesthetically and budget-wise. In the book, there was actually practically no white characters, with most of the gang members being African American or Hispanic. However, studio execs shot down this idea for quote-unquote commercial reasons. To keep that sense of grit and realism, the entire film was shot on the streets of New York, with only a handful of scenes being done in studio. Filming, by all accounts, was absolutely exhausting, and the crew mainly had to work from sundown to sunrise since the entire film was shot at night. Not to mention, filming in 1970s New York City brought with it everything you might expect, including bricks and urine being thrown at the cast and canceled scenes due to nearby homicides. Hill actually used the environment to his advantage and famously incorporated real gang members alongside off-duty police officers in the famous conclave scene. The terrible working conditions fostered a sense of camaraderie among the crew, but also inevitably led to some tension. One notable instance was between Tom Waits, the actor who played Fox, and Hill. Waits was originally supposed to play a larger role in the film, but 8 weeks into filming, tensions between Waits and Hill reached a boiling point. Eventually, Hill demanded that the stunt coordinator improvise a scene in front of Waits killing his character. Quote, "It was like someone cut my soul out and left a shell," Waits remembers. He would later demand that his name be removed from the cast altogether, and he remains uncredited to this day. One more fun fact that I just have to include is that in the final Coney Island confrontation, actor David Kelly, who played Luther, the guy who actually shoots Cyrus, initially proposed using 2 dead pigeons for his iconic Warriors Come Out to Play. However, unsurprisingly, Hill expressed reservations about this idea. While the movie and film share the same basic plot premise and dystopian vision of the city, they diverge in a number of ways. Large sections of story aside, one huge departure is in the depiction of gangs. The book paints a gritty, near-realistic picture of 1960s New York gang culture. Gangs are often racially similar, fiercely territorial, and brutal. In contrast, the film adopts a more flamboyant, exaggerated, and almost fantastical approach. Each gang boasts a unique, visually striking attire, ranging from bare-chested vests to full baseball uniforms, resulting in some incredibly unique and memorable aesthetics. The Warriors opened on February 9th, 1979, and coinciding with the film's release, there was a huge number of gang-related vandalisms and even killings involving moviegoers. This actually prompted Paramount to pull all radio and television ads briefly, and even paid cinemas nationwide if they decided to hire additional security. Despite this, the movie did pretty well financially at the time, earning more than double the cost it took to make the film. However, initial critical reception was harsh. Despite impressive visuals, critics pointed out its lack of realism and its extremely clunky dialogue, with one great example being, "This isn't even remotely intended as an action film, it's a ballet of stylized male violence." However, The Warriors resonated with a different audience. Its stylized portrayal of violence appealed to a demographic that was starved for content at the time, teenagers and other gang members. More than that, it depicted gangs not as villains, but as protagonists. This choice, whether conscious or not, was incredibly groundbreaking for the time. Even then, President Ronald Reagan was a fan of the film, and he called Michael Beck, the actor who played Swan, personally. Surprisingly, over the years, instead of interest moving away from the Warriors, it actually became a cult classic. People revisited and re-evaluated the movie, and as of August 2023, the film boasts an impressive 88% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes. In 2003, the New York Times honored the film by including it in its Best 1,000 Movies Ever Made list. The mesmerizing and almost mythical depiction of New York City, the outlandish and over-the-top depiction of gangs, and its themes of brotherhood and machismo wrapped up in this cheesy but almost nightmare-esque package has continued to captivate audiences across various generations, and it most likely will continue to do that for a long time. Now, I have a question for you. Can you count, suckers? Because with all the notoriety and continued popularity, there have unsurprisingly been a lot of attempts at expanding the franchise into other mediums throughout the years. Shockingly, it took decades for someone to capitalize on the Warriors' success by launching action figures, but launch they did eventually in 2005. Don't get too excited though, because these bad boys are collectibles, and in the modern day, you might have to sell more than an arm and a leg to buy them. Not surprisingly, a video game adaptation emerged, with Rockstar, the masterminds behind GTA, at the helm of development. While I could talk about this game for hours, basically it followed the same general premise as the film, and the game played kind of the same to other Rockstar titles, just with more of a focus on fighting, with huge brawls, tagging, and exploring the city being front and center. It also has these great flashback sequences involving new gangs that give much needed background on the Warriors. Even better, original actors from the film return to lend their voices, maybe just sounding a bit older, which was a really nice touch. It's all simple but charming and works so well in the Rockstar format. The game is still highly regarded by many and often considered an underrated gem amongst Rockstar's portfolio, and possibly one of the best movie-to-game tie-ins ever, which is sadly a really rare thing to see. Unfortunately, though, this wasn't the only video game made, and we got The Warriors Street Brawl, which was a side-scroller developed by CXTM, released on Xbox Live, and it wasn't great. It's too bad because you can tell this game really tries to capture that special Warriors aesthetic, but it's just so let down by super repetitive gameplay. Apparently, less than 2,000 people downloaded the game, and in 2013, it was actually pulled from Xbox Live Marketplace, making this pretty much impossible to play today. If the video games aren't up your alley, though, you can also play the board game, which was published pretty recently by Funko Games in 2022. Now, with the continued popularity of the film, there was of course an effort to make a remake. The late American film director Tony Scott had envisioned a remake of The Warriors, considering settings in both modern Los Angeles, inspired by the LA riots, and contemporary New York City. His vision involved a substantial expansion of the Warriors gang to 3,000 members, departing from the original 30. Unfortunately, Scott's passing during the early stages of development completely halted the project. In 2015, there was some interest in doing some more work on this remake, but no further updates emerged. Despite Paramount's apparent interest in the intellectual property, concrete details about the project remain elusive, leaving fans with nothing but rumors hinting at its potential development. On the TV side of things, after Marvel's Civil War, Joe and Anthony Russo announced they were working with Paramount Television and Hulu for a reimagined Warriors TV series in 2016. And then development reportedly moved to Netflix, but since 2018, it's been, well, nothing. It does have an IMDb page, so that's something, but we'll see if this one ever gets off the ground. And if that's all not enough for you, most recently, it sounds a bit unhinged, but there is a musical adaptation of The Warriors coming to Broadway. There's actually some big names behind this with the same writers who did Hamilton, so it could be a perfect pairing, who knows? You know, with all the love and passion that's been alive over these years for The Warriors, in this age of remakes and sequels, it's kind of incredible that there hasn't been anything done really. And it's made me wonder, well, why not? I think at the time of release, the movie was just seen as too controversial, and instead of capturing that lightning in a bottle, the studio just sat on it. When people started to finally sit up and take notice and say, hey, the Warriors are still a thing, people are still talking about this 20 years later, it was just fumbled a few times in development hell. On top of that, the impression I get is the original author of the book, Urich, although fascinated by the success of the Warriors, wasn't really interested in continuing it, which probably didn't help on the film sequel front. It was one of his first works, and he never really spoke highly of it, instead preferring to write new novels. Regardless, the enduring appeal of the movie was just its incredible capture of the zeitgeist of 1970s New York with its off-the-wall style. I can't really see how it's possible to recreate that atmosphere in the modern setting or even capture the spirit of that essence. But even without a remake, the legacy of the Warriors remains a cultural juggernaut, effortlessly leaping across generations and mediums. And if you're looking for it, you can see Warriors references jumping out at you almost everywhere. Simpsons, South Park references, Scrubs, Wu-Tang Clan references, Archer, How I Met Your Mother, Tupac music videos, the list goes on and on. From video games like Grand Theft Auto 4 to countless fan art and cosplay tributes, the Warriors' influence permeates pop culture like graffiti on a subway car. It's a testament to the film's raw energy, timeless themes, and unforgettable characters. So, while a remake may never materialize, the spirit of the Warriors lives on. So there you have it. A journey through the gritty streets and the cultural impact of the Warriors. From its controversial birth to its enduring legacy, the film's vibrant aesthetic, pulsating action, and themes of brotherhood and survival have cemented its place as a pop culture icon, and well deserved. I gotta say, in some ways, I'm happy the dice haven't been rolled with a remake on this one because, hey, what we got, the novel, the movie, I mean, even the Rockstar video game, they've all been incredible. Why tarnish that legacy? Whatever happened to the Warriors? Well, its presence is still alive and well. And while remakes and sequels may remain a distant dream, the Warriors' influence continues to echo throughout music, television, and in the hearts of its fans across generations. And who knows, maybe one day those Coney Island lights will flicker back to life. Until then, keep that can of spray paint handy and just remember, thanks so much for watching this. I really appreciate it as I try to get this channel off the grounds. If you want to consider helping me out even more, take a look at my Patreon where you can sign up for as little as $1 a month. And as always, if you have any suggestions about what you want me to cover next, just let me know in the comments below. I'm always looking for new ideas. Anyway, thanks again. I'll see you next time.